VETtalk Radio is proudly supported by the Animal Referral Hospital.
This week.
I'd certainly worry if the vomiting was persistent, if it was large volume, particularly if there's blood.
Vomit? No one likes to talk about it, but there's lots you need to know.
Physios get touchy about that, I'm afraid. It's a lot more than massage, and I've done a master's degree, and there are about, I think, 30 of us in Australia who've done that degree, so that's 6 years of training. So it's a bit more than massage.
I'm glad I broached that subject gently.
The miracle touch? What's the difference between so-so pets and woohoo?
You actually need to get 100 observations to be sure that you're dealing with a left or right pawed dog.
Seriously? Why is it so important to know if your dog is left or right-handed? G'day, I'm Brian Pickering.
And I'm Kaye Browne.
All those stories and more right here on VETtalk, with our latest podcast available every Saturday on vettalkradio.com.au and also available free in the iTunes store.
Now, poos, wheeze and other unmentionables are all part of owning a pet. But there's one unmentionable, vomit, that needs to be taken seriously if it's more than just a quick urka-gurka, as I like to call it. So we asked the Animal Referral Hospital's Dr. Sarah Goldsmid to find out from internal medicine specialist Dr. Narelle Browne if pet owners should be concerned when their dog vomits.
So Narelle, I was just going to ask you on behalf of owners who might be worried about this. So if they have their dog that morning maybe vomited once or twice, should they be worried? What should they do?
Yeah, well, obviously vomiting is a really common thing that dogs and cats will do, and it would depend on how they're feeling, first.
Right.
They might just vomit once and walk off and they're fine and eat their breakfast normally an hour later. So if they're otherwise bright and happy, they're not dehydrated, and so they're not losing a lot of fluid, and there's no blood in the vomit, and particularly if they suspect that they may have eaten something that they shouldn't have eaten, they got into the garbage, something like that, then it may just be fine just to not feed them for 12 hours, give them small amounts of water, and they may be fine from that. I'd certainly worry if the vomiting was persistent, if it was large volume, particularly if there's blood coming up into the vomit. You've just got a couple of little specks, it's often nothing to worry about, but if there's a lot of vomit. Also, if it's accompanied by other signs, if they're depressed, if they're off their food, if they have diarrhea, if they're losing weight, if it's a more longer-term problem. But if it's just an acute onset and it passes, that may not be anything to worry about.
What are the most common causes of vomiting?
Certainly, I think dietary indiscretion would be by far and away the most common. Dogs are eating foods that they're not supposed to eat, spicy foods.
A bit like my dog.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And also, with like your dog, eating not actually food items, but, objects like, bits of clothing or things like that. So, yeah.
Right. So if you had an older animal that started vomiting, would that be less likely, or would you worry about other things?
Yeah, certainly in an older animal, they're less likely to get into the garbage bin and eat stuff like that, or get into a toxin. It's more likely to be a medical problem with an older dog, so liver disease, kidney disease, that sort of thing, whereas a 2-year-old Labrador, for instance, is far more likely to have half a tennis ball sitting in his stomach. Yeah.
And what would you recommend then to the owner if they're worried?
Yeah, look, I think always if the vomiting is ongoing, they obviously should seek veterinary attention, and obviously we would palpate their stomach, we'd have check their temperature, check their hydration status, do some blood tests, see if there's any evidence of any organ dysfunction, weigh them, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but far and away, getting dehydrated is the biggest issue with vomiting.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they're younger animals, say they've got a puppy or kitten that's vomiting, is that more of a risk for dehydration?
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys don't have much body weight; they're going to lose a lot more fluid proportionally to a larger animal.
So perhaps take them to the vet maybe a little quicker?
Yes, and certainly also if you had a pet that had a condition that predisposed them to dehydration, if they've got kidney disease, those animals can't compensate. They're going to dehydrate much faster than a healthy animal with healthy kidneys, yeah.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much for that information.
No problem.
Well, that was internal medicine specialist Dr. Narelle Browne chatting with Sarah Goldsmid from the Animal Referral Hospital in Sydney.
So this sounds like part one of a whole series about vomiting dogs and cats, by the way.
And of course, the ultimate message is get your pet to the vet as soon as possible if you suspect anything at all is wrong with them.
That's the sound of Browne's knees.
Absolutely.
Animals and people suffer from many of the same problems: arthritis, old age, creaky knees, sports injuries, old injuries, trauma, back and neck pain. You know, some of these injuries, you know, it's like, oh, my aching, this, that and the other, and you think, what on earth can you do to alleviate the pain? Well, physiotherapy can be of great benefit in helping some of those problems, and Khristine Edwards is a name that will ring few bells. She's been on our show before. She's a physiotherapist and acupuncturist who's worked with people for 20 years, animals for the last 9 years. Now, although Khristine's based in Sydney, stick around, everybody, because you'll be able to learn lots about this particular topic and how to find a competent local physiotherapist for your animal where you live. Khristine, first of all, welcome back. Great to see you again.
Great to see you.
Yeah. What sort of problems benefit from using the underwater treadmill? Yeah.
Many problems benefit. You can go from the canine athlete who wants to get fitter and do cross-training. I have my first canine athlete, a Chihuahua, booked in this Saturday.
Oh, my goodness.
And when the lady rang me, I couldn't help but laugh. And she said, that's all right, everybody laughs. She said he is an agility dog. Yep. He does really well.
Ooh.
And she said, I want him to cross-train. Cross-training means that whatever sport you do different forms of exercise to complement that, and you use different muscle groups. She wants him to swim. So he's coming in for his first workout this Saturday. Now, that's one end of the spectrum. Right at the other end of the spectrum, you have dogs that you need to assist in. They may be recovering from surgery. They might be very old. They might have been hit by a car. They might be just very weak. And they benefit greatly from the treadmill.
It's interesting because when you first hear about animal physiotherapy, a lot of people just immediately think, oh, massage, you know, massaging for pets are like big deal. But when you put it that way and you go through those things, it's like, well, yeah, it's some very important moments that can be used.
Physios get touchy about that, I'm afraid. It's a lot more than massage, and if I've done a master's degree, and there are about, I think, 30 of us in Australia who've done that degree, so that's 6 years of training. So it's a bit more than massage.
I'm glad I broached that subject gently.
Yeah, no pun intended about being touchy about
We do massage, and we're very good at massage, but we do a lot of joint work and working on the spine and neurological work and all sorts of things.
Great.
So in terms of neurological work, I'm very interested in this area because older animals particularly have neurological problems. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you can do with physiotherapy.
Well, with the treadmill, working in the water is fantastic. And in the water, the dog can be swimming, walking, wading, combination of all of those things. The water takes the weight off old and painful joints. Neurological problems, the dogs often can't walk very well at all, so in the water you're assisting them to move. The physio's in the water with problem cases, so we're all in there together, and you can help the animal to move really well, hold them up, get the limbs moving. If they don't need that much assistance, they go in themselves and just walk, wade, swim. On land, you do lots of things for neurological problems, getting animals to use their muscles properly, getting them to balance. We have all sorts of tricks to get them to use their limbs. We use doggy sorts of wobble boards and foam and all sorts of things to make them. Brian's laughing.
No, I'm not laughing. I'm about to ask, what is a doggy wobble board?
Well, it's the same as a human wobble board. Stand on the cylinder. You can make your own. You can buy them. It can be square or round. You can get big, thick pieces of foam. Anything where the dog's got he wobbles to maintain his balance, and you can make it harder or easier. And this is serious.
Sorry, it just sounded like me on our Fiji holiday recently, but anyway. Wobbling back to the...
Yeah, I was going to say, there wasn't a wobble board in sight.
Well, we have a Duradisc down at the practice, and that was initially made for people. It's lovely. You stand on it to... People use it for ankle strengthening and balance and coordination, and we get the dogs to stand on that as well. So there you go.
We would never laugh at you.
So animals lose their sense of coordination?
Absolutely, yeah. You see it all the time, especially if you're... physios look for that all the time, but often owners come in and they say, oh, I didn't notice before, but now you've pointed it out. They can see that one leg's a bit wobblier, or the legs just they're bandy, or one leg is too far forward of the other, and the dog is not walking well, they're a little bit shaky. Often it's neurological, they're losing their balance, or it's pain. Lots of reasons.
Do they get pinched nerves in their shoulders like we do?
They do.
And it's not from using the mouse on the computer like mine is it?
No, not unless they're doing it at night when you're not around.
No, I think he just eats then, actually, the leftovers.
Usually from jumping off fences. I had a client a few months ago, a gorgeous cattle dog, and the owners and the vet and me initially, we all thought there was something wrong with his forepaw and he wasn't responding to treatment, and then... I thought perhaps it's coming from the neck and checked with the vet. I said I might start treating the neck. She said fine. Dog got better. So it was a pinched nerve in the neck that was making him look as though he had a sore foot. So yes, dogs get pinched nerves. We're a fairly new profession, so a lot of vets still don't know about us. So part of the job is to get out there and let vets know that we're around and what we do.
Well, I, for one, am very glad that you are around, because sometimes, you think, oh, gosh, it's not really something that I think, it sounds like a medical problem, veterinary problem or something like that. And it's good to know that there are alternatives that we can offer to our pets.
Definitely there are.
And that was the ever-delightful Khristine Edwards from Sydney Animal Physiotherapy.com.au.
Love hearing Khristine. We've known her for ages. The important thing, of course, is that so many people tell me, oh, my dog or my cat was lovely and then suddenly got really cranky and, lashed out. It's possibly because they were hurting. So this is why physiotherapists that know about animals are really important.
Are you left-handed or right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Or do you swing both ways? Sorry, that should read, are you ambidextrous? Scientists are learning that being a southpaw can give them early indications that an animal might be good at a particular job, like rounding up sheep or being a guide dog or maybe a quarantine sniffer dog, for example, or even if they're going to suffer from things like separation anxiety later in their life. Wow. And best of all, imagine if you knew a horse was left-hoofed and that he'd be better running in the Melbourne Cup than, say, a right-hoofed horse.
I'd put money on it.
Certainly when you don't even gamble. And to help us understand a little bit more about this rather complex topic on the phone right now, we have veterinary animal behaviourist Professor Paul McGreevy from the Veterinary Science Faculty of Sydney University. G'day, Paul, and welcome to VETtalk. We didn't know our pets were left or right-pawed, are they?
Yeah, there's been quite a number of studies now on lateralisation, as we call it, in various species, and almost every species that's been studied, from walruses through to dogs to zebras and even things like lungfish, have shown a laterality, that's a bias to one side or the other. So obviously in humans we talk about left and right-handedness, and the same term is used to describe laterality or lateralisation in primates. But in dogs we call it pawedness, in horses we call it hoofedness. And so we're seeing a pattern, and all of this suggests that we all came from a common ancestor, and that the split in the brain that creates the two hemispheres of the brain is fundamental to all of the species that have been looked at so far.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating, because I thought I was going nuts thinking that some of my dogs were left-handed and some weren't, but there is actually some concrete evidence to prove that is indeed the case.
That's right, and we're actually probably the fourth group that have looked at dogs around the world, and as with other groups, we've shown that left-pawedness is a feature of male dogs more than a feature of female dogs.
True.
Right-pawedness is a feature of the bitches. This seems to relate to the activity of testosterone in the puppies when they were fetuses, believe it or not.
Right. Okay. So it all happens before birth.
That's right. The template's set there, and you can imagine ways of training the bias out of the animal. But if you find the right test, such as giving a dog a Kong and watching how it uses it, you can bypass that training, and you can get a very accurate picture of how the dog is by nature rather than nurture.
We actually found out by accident that one of our guys, Cosmo, when we were doing high fives, we trained him to do that, but he preferred his left paw.
Well, that's a very interesting observation, Brian. Well, I can't be sure that means that he is definitely biased to the
okay.
right. We have to bear in mind that he may have had some existing musculoskeletal injury that makes him want to support his weight with the other leg. It may be the way you approach him as you start training him. It may be the first time that he actually gave you high five with such a great excitement and great source of rewards that it locked it in as the only way he could get that reward out of you. So be aware that you could have been training it, and as a scientist I also have to be aware that there could be a physiological or a physical reason for that bias. So we have to be careful to use tests that don't rely on the dog having to support its weight on one leg or the other.
So what kind of test did you use?
Well, we used a test that was developed by some colleagues in the University of New England up in Armidale. And what they do is they give dogs a Kong. We all know what a Kong is, don't we?
Yeah.
And the centre of the Kong, that's the central cylinder, the hollowed out bit, is filled with soft food such as chicken sausage or...
peanut butter.
Well, yeah, don't go crazy on the peanut butter because there's a bit too much fat, even in the light version.
So you're a nutritionist as well?
Ah.
Well, I've got a recipe actually, Browne, for the composition of food that can be put into the Kong and then frozen to slow down the dog's progress through that food, because you actually need to get 100 observations to be sure that you're dealing with a left or right pawed dog. So that's 100 interactions with the Kong.
Gosh.
So you can see why I'm a bit cautious about your
peanut butter
Cosmo's high five.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But look, I interrupted you there. So we put the food in the Kong.
We put the food in the Kong. If you've got a dog with a huge, insatiable appetite, and that, I might be thinking of a Labrador there, then you put the food in the Kong and then put the Kong and the food into the freezer. So you're making a sort of popsicle that slows down the dog's progress through that food. And you watch to see which paw they use to restrain the Kong as they lick the food out of it.
Now, Paul, our latest little rescue, little Chiquita, she's a toy poodle. She likes to use both paws on her food. So what does that mean?
Right, well, that would probably, it's not quite the same as being ambidextrous, but it would probably mean that she didn't have a bias to the left or right.
Right.
And these dogs are of particular interest to veterinary behaviourists because unbiased animals sometimes have problems coping. And there is evidence that unbiased dogs are more sensitive to noise and can actually present with noise phobia.
Wow.
Now that's interesting for me because, of course, as a veterinary behaviourist, I see lots of dogs with noise phobia, and I also am aware of some very strong evidence to suggest that dogs with noise phobia are very high risk also for separation-related distress. So we've got a whole percentage of the population, maybe 50% of the population in some studies have been shown to have separation-related distress. Now, we haven't actually looked at the relationship between separation-related distress and laterality, but it's the next question. If we've got evidence that noise phobia is predicted by the lack of bias, then we need to look at separation-related dogs as well. Not to identify them and avoid them, but to identify them and treat them as they need to be treated with special care.
Wow. That was Professor Paul McGreevy from the Sydney University Faculty of Veterinary Science.
He is so cool. We've known him for years.
But what about Chica? Like he hit it on the head with her dual-handedness, or dual-pawedness, whatever you want to call it, on food was very much like our other little doggy, Kismet, who did the same thing.
Absolutely.
Separation anxiety, noise
phobia, overprotective.
Anyway, we're actually going to come back with Paul probably next week, I guess, look at some other aspects of left and right pawedness. All right, it's now time for the latest pet and animal news from Kaye Browne.
First of all, very quickly, dog owners, do you really know what your dog is thinking? Really? Sure, you've read all the body language books and viewed the videos, but what if there was a gadget that apparently can translate how your pooch is actually feeling at any given time? Guess what? There's a new one. It's called Tail Talk. And it's a bit like those fitness bracelets you've been seeing everyone wear, except Browne, where they're working out and they're calculating how much energy they're expending. Except this time, it's a tiny little thing. It's half the size of a collar, but it goes on the dog's tail.
Right.
Don't know how we'll go with tiny dogs, but anyway, apparently, according to Cornell University experts, tail wagging can be mapped to indicate when a pooch is unhappy or stressed. Okay, left or right.
So just interrupting you here.
Yep.
Can I strap one of those to, like, you and find out how you're going? Like, your tail's wagging to the left or the right?
I don't have a tail.
Okay. Moving on.
Okay, come back to the story, though, because I'm really interested in this because I think it's important that people know because they spend so much time apart from their pet. And so this way you can put this little tiny device on your pet's tail, apparently, and it will tell you via your mobile device whether your pet's happy or unhappy. Maybe they don't like the dog walker. Maybe they're just asleep. And then you'll know for sure when they're very, very happy. It's called Tail Talk.
Tail Talk, but it is an app in your phone,
and
right?
It's an app that you can read, and of course, like everything these days, Indiegogo, they're getting the money, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay, looking for crowdsourcing.
What else?
Very quickly, birth control in pets. Now, this is a very tricky topic, and one that's caused more arguments, I guess, among rescue groups than any other. However, there's exciting news. Thank you. Instead of having to go under the knife to chop off or whip out those naughty bits, vets could potentially provide safe sex for pets with a single injection. Brian's dumbstruck. Okay, we'll put in a sound effect there. Researchers from the California Institute of Technology reported in this month's issue of Current Biology that they've got results of a new proof-of-concept injection that neutralizes male and female reproductive hormones. Okay, so they can't have babies. Okay, that's how it goes.
I'm still reeling over, in this week's edition of Current Biology. It's like, hello.
Well, you read that, don't you? Yes?
Oh, not
everyone
week.
does.
Not every week.
Yeah. Okay, so this is kind of cool because it really is a big deal. We do know that feral groups of animals really are a problem. So, all jokes aside, this augurs well. But, it's just the start of the process. So we'll keep you up to date on that one. Okay, and another cute little one. Your grandmother or granddad probably talked to you about something being the bee's knees as being something really good.
Yes, she did. How did you know?
Guess what? Scientists have now discovered that a much more unlikely critter was the very first on Earth to develop knees, not a bee.
Okay.
Any guesses?
No.
Okay, I'll let you out of your misery. Knees actually began as a gene in a fruit fly, those pesky things, and the gene duplicated and evolved in spiders. Oh, we all know how much we all love spiders, resulting in knees. Now, again, there's a study published in the popular journal Molecular Biology and Evolution, and of course that's another one that you read regularly.
That's another one I subscribe to every week, yeah.
But all of this stuff is actually important for pet owners as well because, it's a good thing to know about and also to realise that all of this stuff that's going on is going to be good for both pets and humans. So I'll spare you the scientific gobbledygook, but these clever researchers were able to prove for the first time that knees came into spiders by reversing the process and making them into little stiff-legged robotic things. It didn't hurt, okay, so don't worry. But it really is important in trying to identify and work out weak knees and how to stop them being passed on from generation to generation.
You're right into knees at the moment, aren't you? It's something to do with my knees. Like, you see me every day sort of struggling. Oh, I'm getting up here, I'm getting old,
I didn't want to mention.
No, okay.
Didn't want to mention your
kind
bleating.
Of right into knees and you're like, the bee's knees and there's all these kind of things.
Well, it's also because my 90-year-old father is here on holidays. He's out at the moment.
Let's not mention your 90-year-old father.
He's fine, doesn't have bad knees at all.
I know, and he walks every day, and let's not even go there.
And hopefully I've got his knees and nobody else's, and my knees will be fine.
Okay.
But it's important to keep up to date.
Okay, everyone knows we're married. Kaye Browne, you are the bee's knees. Thanks for joining us again on VETtalk, and you can also get us on the iTunes store, or you can just go straight to vettalkradio.com.au. In fact, if you subscribe to our vettalktv.com website, you'll get updated with all our regular podcasts that we do every week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Pickering.
I'm Kaye Browne.
And we'll see you again next week.
See you next time.